It's 12 minutes past 8. A BBC investigation has found that parents of children with severe epilepsy are breaking the law to give them cannabis medicine as they struggle to have the drug prescribed on the NHS.
File on 4 has spoken to families purchasing oils on the black market, as well as those who illegally smuggle the drugs into the UK. Alistair Fee reports.
Is that funny? Is everything funny?
Lunchtime, and this is 10-year-old Annie's favourite meal.
She loves food. She's quite highly motivated by food.
Annie has a rare form of epilepsy. We've changed their names to protect their identity.
It's harrowing, it's tiring, it's exhausting, it's scary. It's the scariest thing ever seeing your child seize.
The only drug that her parents say helps is an oil made from the cannabis plant. But there's a catch. The medicine Mum Jane gives her daughter is illegal.
I don't want to be breaking the law, but currently I probably would say I don't actually care that I'm breaking the law.
Because of the change you see in your daughter?
She's happier, but most importantly, she's having a dramatically reduced amount of seizures. Okay.
In London, 14-year-old Jasper also takes cannabis oil to control his epilepsy. He's gone from having hundreds of seizures to almost none. But his supply is legal and privately prescribed. It costs the family £30,000 a year.
I work literally 7 days a week to pay for it. We are just aware that we are incredibly lucky, firstly to have been able to secure a prescription because it's very difficult to do, and secondly to be able to afford it.
Mum Alice is the author of a new report by a charity that campaigns on this issue. For the first time, it has tried to quantify how many parents resort to illegal cannabis oils on the black market.
We used a kind of an established methodology for identifying the number of families who are kind of based in the UK, and we identified well over 300, actually nearly 400 families. So to know that there are that many parents willing to do that is obviously very shocking. If you're, as a parent, faced with a choice between your child dying or trying something illegal, at the end of the day, there's no law that's going to stop you from trying that if you think it might work for your child.
Access to these particular types of oils is very difficult.
We've tracked down one of those suppliers who has agreed to talk to us anonymously. He runs a legal CBD company and offers illegal oils on the side. He says he does it for free or for a small donation. Thanks for agreeing to talk to us.
No worries, thank you for giving me the time to talk. We call it a compassion programme. We have a very core belief that people shouldn't, especially children, shouldn't pay to have a decent quality of existence, quality of life. I think it comes down to a moral obligation. We see our moral obligation towards people who come to us as something that supersedes any legislation, monetary value or anything like that.
What gives you the confidence that you're not harming people with the oils that you're producing?
Because we have access, or we have complete control of everything from seed to bottle. So we know what we're doing, we know what we're putting in, and we have the ability to test, manufacture and produce the specific specifications.
Medical cannabis was legalised in 2018. Since then, the plant's full extract oils haven't been licensed, and fewer than 5 patients have been given it on the NHS. It can be prescribed privately, but is costly. The BBC's File on 4 Investigates has spoken to several families who say they have been left with no choice but to turn to illegal suppliers. In a statement, the Department of Health and Social Care said licensed cannabis-based medicines are routinely funded by the NHS where there is clear evidence of their quality, safety and effectiveness. The NHS is taking an evidence-based approach to unlicensed cannabis-based treatments to ensure they are proved safe and effective before they can be considered for rollout more widely.
Is that funny?
With no clear direction on when or if these medicines will become available, parents like Jane say they're in an impossible situation.
It makes me really, really angry that for my daughter to be this happy, healthy and well, I've got to break the law.
What's your worst fear?
That somebody finds out, I get arrested, my husband loses his job, and Annie doesn't receive the oil, and she goes back to square one.
Alistair Fee, BBC News.
You can listen to the full story on File on 4 Investigates. That's on BBC Radio 4 tonight at 8 o'clock, or you can hear it anytime. You can find it right now on BBC Sounds.
Well, we are joined here on the sofa now by Hannah Deacon, whose son Alfie was the first NHS patient to be granted a licence for medical cannabis, and by the Liberal Democrat MP Layla Moran.
With a cup
Morning,
of tea.
Layla. You're allowed to have a cup of tea. Yeah, that's totally fine. Who is the chair of the Health Select Committee. Morning, both. Thank you so much for talking to us about this morning. I think first question here is, how is Alfie, and what difference does prescribed cannabis make to him?
So Alfie is extremely well. He's a happy little boy. He has a very rare form of epilepsy. It's not going away. He has autism and learning difficulties. However, his quality of life since he's had that prescription is immense. He's over 4 years seizure-free. He's going to school every day. And very importantly as well, which is often forgotten, I was a full-time carer for 6 years. I'm now not. I'm now working. I'm now able to socialise. I'm now able to add to the economy. And I think that social and economic issue for carers, you know, there's 35,000 children in this country like Alfie. There's 35,000 women like me not able to work. And that's really important as well.
Just remind us of the challenges you have had in getting the cannabis for him.
So it was illegal when we wanted to use it. We were told by the NHS, really importantly, there was nothing we could do for Alfie. So when you're told that, as a mother, I thought, if I'm going to bury my little boy, I need to do everything I can in my power to keep him alive. You know, and I know that will resonate with every parent across the country. We will do everything we can for our children. So we moved to Holland and we worked with a paediatric neurologist there, and Alfie then got a prescription that worked, and we came home and ran a very effective campaign in 2018 with the help of the media and parliamentarians, and we got Alfie's prescription. And when the law changed, I thought, brilliant, you know, other children like Alfie will get access, and that just simply hasn't happened, unfortunately.
And he was having it before access to the cannabis, where he's been seizure-free for 4 years. He was having, what, 100 or more fits per week?
Yes, and I was, as I say, full-time carer, taking him into hospital in an ambulance every week, costing the NHS over £200,000 a year. And I think that's really important to remember that. He doesn't cost the NHS that money anymore because he's prescribed this relatively cheap medication that works incredibly well. And actually this idea that it will cost the NHS money to bring in is just simply wrong. It will save money.
So Layla, I mean, you're chair of the Health Select Committee now, but why do you think it's taken, or why do you think it's taking so long for people to be able to access this? Only 4 people have been able to get a prescription.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, can I just pay credit to Hannah and all those families who have campaigned so diligently. I was a relatively new MP back in 2018, and I remember Parliament cross-party was so moved by their stories. And when the law was changed in 2018, I remember Sajid Javid standing up and saying, basically, he wanted families to get access to these drugs as quickly as possible. Then the Health and Social Care Select Committee of the time did a report in 2019 that could have been a crystal ball report, and it said basically 2 things. Number one, that expectation had been massively raised, but without the evidence base in order to back that up. So our regulators and also the health economics body, NICE, that decides whether or not it's cost effective, could have the evidence they needed to give prescribers in the NHS the confidence to be able to prescribe these. Now, those trials just never happened. There was a call to evidence. There are trials now ongoing as of October 24th, so many years later. And many families will point out those trials are insufficient because they are trials that, first of all, ask those parents to take the children off the medication in the first place, which they say could be very dangerous, in fact, life-threatening. And because they are gold standard trials that include placebos, you could actually end up in the group that doesn't receive any medication at all. That's just not acceptable to many of these families who have found these treatments and understandably want to keep their children on them. So I would urge the government now to do 2 things. First of all, we welcome, and you must welcome, more evidence base. You've got to have that gold standard. These are children. Let's have the highest possible evidence base. But there are now 400 families, we estimate, across the country who are accessing these cannabis-based products. And we need to bring those into the NHS fold and learn from what they've learned over these years. There are other ways of doing trials that could facilitate that, observational trials, for example. So my urge to the government is work with these families. They're incredibly knowledgeable, and they'd much rather be part of the NHS than do it in the way that they're doing now, either going abroad or indeed illegally.
Hannah, I wonder what you would like to say to the chair of the Health Select Committee.
Hello, Layla.
Hello.
I'd like you to review this again. we know that doctors who want to help children and want to prescribe in the NHS are being told they cannot. Now, this is an unlicensed medication that could be prescribed in the NHS like any other medication that most of our children are given. Let's not forget that most medications our children are given do not have that evidence base. I think it's absolutely right that we look at new research, but that shouldn't be a blockage to this being available on the NHS now. This should be available now as an unlicensed special like many other drugs on the NHS. And without making sure that that happens, we are going to see children die or families be pushed to the illegal market. And I think there needs to be an urgent review. I actually sat with Wes Streeting 2 years ago and told him about this issue, and he got it and he said, I'll speak to Keir's team and we'll do something about this. I have not heard from him since. We need to sit down with yourselves and with Wes Streeting and get this review done again and look at why doctors aren't being supported to prescribe and how, as you say, we can create trials which work for our children. These new trials that are being created at the moment look at single compounds. They don't help our children. No one is listening to us. That's not healthcare as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like your support on that.
Layla Moran, your response to that?
You have my personal support, absolutely. And I'm confident that parliamentarians across the political spectrum, given that we had also been given the assurances that these families would get these drugs back in 2018, I think what will surprise most people is that it's not already happening. So absolutely, let's restart this campaign and get those drugs to people beyond just Alfie and make sure that those children have access to them. Absolutely behind you.
Hannah, you're nodding. Layla, you suggested in your first answer that you didn't think that the current trials are effectively fit for purpose and are potentially dangerous. Do you think they should be stopped and something new should be done in their place?
No, I mean, I think it's really important to be clear about what I've said. What the NIHR, which is the body that sort of determines trials, and the government basically allocates money to them and then says, we want trials on this. So what they've done is they've got 2 trials ongoing. They did that off the back of a call to evidence that they made, I think it was 2019, and then it's taken this long for the trials to get going. But these trials are sort of gold-plated evidence-based. What we mean by that is, you have, when you're testing these kinds of drugs, you have different groups and cohorts, some of which get the drug, some of which get other types of drugs, some of them get what is effectively a placebo, which means that it's a compound that they don't think will have an effect, and then they compare them all to each other. Now, if you are a family who's sort of new to this, not already on something, or might have tried some of these compounds, and as Hannah said, there are different types of drugs. So some of them are single compounds, cannabinoid medicines. There are many hundreds of compounds. There are many of them, and it's the combination of them that many families
say
is
complicated, isn't it?
It's quite complicated.
Yeah.
But these trials, they're only testing one small thing. The families point out, actually, the thing that really helps is not being tested.
Layla Moran, thank you very much indeed. I know, Hannah, you have one final thing to say.
I want to say, Wes Streeting, you need to meet with me today. Please, where are you? Wes Streeting, let's meet and let's sort this out. If you do not help these children, you are complicit, and your government is complicit in the suffering of these children and the vulnerability of these families who will be either breaking the law or maxing out their credit cards to pay privately. You must help these families today.
Hannah, thank you very much indeed. We do have a statement from the Department for Health and Social Care who've said licensed medicines are routinely funded where there is clear evidence of their quality, safety and effectiveness. The NHS is taking an evidence-based approach to unlicensed cannabis-based treatment to ensure they are proved safe and effective.
That's simply wrong. There is a huge amount of evidence. We know internationally a huge amount of evidence. They are brushing this under the carpet and allowing children to die, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, maybe you've given a very impassioned plea, so who knows? Keep your mobile on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's 26 minutes past 8.